They don't want you to know this, and if you watch this video to the end, you'll understand exactly why. Imagine for a second that someone handed you a small metal tile, something that looks like a dull, flat square you'd find in a forgotten electronics drawer. No moving parts, no fuel, no solar panels, no batteries. You press one side of it against something warm, a rooftop, a campfire rock, even a warm engine block, and the other side just sits in open air. And electricity flows. Real, measurable electricity. Enough to charge your phone, enough to power your lights, every single night, for free. Now imagine that this isn't science fiction. This isn't a fantasy someone cooked up on a conspiracy forum at 2 in the morning. This is real, verified, peer-reviewed physics that has existed quietly, patiently, since 1821. And the reason you've never heard about it in any mainstream conversation, in any news segment, in any government energy program, is not because it doesn't work. It's because it works too well. And there are people, very powerful, very wealthy people, who have spent over a century making sure you never connect the dots. What if I told you that for literally $3, less than a drive-through coffee and a sad little muffin, you could own a device that converts heat into electricity? Not solar heat, not compressed steam, just the temperature difference between a warm surface and the open air. That's it, a gap in temperature. Something that exists everywhere, all the time, for free. What if the energy industry has known about this since before your grandparents were born and has quietly, systematically buried it under decades of misdirection, lobbying, and legal red tape? That's not a conspiracy theory. That's a business strategy. And today, we're pulling back the curtain on all of it. Let's go back to the beginning, not 1902, not even 1900. Let's go back to 1821 to a German physicist named Thomas Johann Seebeck. At the time, the scientific community was still piecing together the relationship between heat, magnetism, and electricity, concepts that today seem obvious, but back then were like unlocking secret codes of the universe. Seebeck was working in his lab with two different metals, bismuth and copper, twisted together into a loop. It was an unremarkable looking setup, the kind of thing you'd clean off a workbench without a second thought. But then something happened that stopped him cold. He held one end of that metal loop near a candle flame and left the other end in the cooler air of the room, and a compass needle nearby began to move. Slowly, deliberately, unmistakably. There was no battery, no charge, no external power source, just two metals, a temperature difference, and electricity flowing through the loop, disturbing the magnetic field enough to deflect that compass needle. Seebeck called it thermomagnetism because he didn't fully understand what he was seeing. He thought he had discovered a magnetic effect. It took 12 more years, and the brilliant mind of a French physicist named Jean-Charles Athanase Peltier to realize what was actually happening. Electricity was being generated directly from heat. No steam, no combustion, no moving parts. Pure, silent, direct conversion of temperature, differential into electrical current. This is now known as the Seebeck Effect, and it is one of the most fundamental laws of physics in existence. It doesn't bend under pressure, it doesn't have an off day, it doesn't need maintenance or calibration. It just works. The same way it worked in 1821, the same way it works in deep space today, the same way it will work on your rooftop tomorrow morning when the sun starts baking your shingles. Now here's where the story gets darker. And I want you to pay very close attention here, because this is the part that most people never hear. By 1902, 80 years after Seebeck's compass needle twitched, American engineers had already begun experimenting with this effect in industrial settings. Picture this, a large smelting facility at Moyag in Pennsylvania. Furnace walls radiating heat at 400 degrees Celsius. A mining engineer named Clarence Whitfield noticed something strange. Copper wiring near the furnaces was showing unexplained current fluctuations, not caused by any external power source, just the heat, just the differential between the scorching furnace wall and the cooler surrounding air. Whitfield was curious enough to test it deliberately. He rigged copper and iron wire together, pressed one junction against the furnace wall, let the other hang in open air, and measured what happened. The result was undeniable. A continuous, steady electrical current. Small, yes, but measurable, reproducible, reliable. The kind of result that scientists dream about. He published his findings in a trade journal in 1903. The article circulated through the engineering community. People read it, they understood it, and then, quietly, without drama or fanfare, it disappeared. No follow-up research funding, no commercial development, no government program to explore it, just silence. And here's what makes that silence so loud when you actually look at the timeline. In 1903, the United States was in the middle of a massive, explosive electrification boom. Utility companies were stringing power lines across every city and town in the country. Investors were pouring fortunes into grid infrastructure. Politicians were celebrating the march of progress. And every single one of those power lines, Every transformer, every generator, every meter, they all depended on one thing: customers who had no other choice but to pay for electricity every single month. The moment you introduce a device that sits on someone's roof, requires no fuel, has no moving parts, and generates free electricity from nothing more than a temperature gap, you threaten every single one of those monthly bills. You threaten the entire model. Because this technology is decentralized. It can't be metered. It can't be taxed at the point of generation. It can't be controlled from a central hub. It belongs to whoever owns the roof it's sitting on. That is not a technology that a freshly formed utility monopoly welcomes with open arms. That is a technology they need to contain. And contain it, they did. Now, I want to break down the actual physics here, because once you understand how this works, really understand it, the numbers are going to hit you like a freight train. Here's the key principle. The Seebeck effect generates electrical voltage proportional to the temperature difference between 2 points on a device made of dissimilar materials. You don't need extreme heat. You don't need a furnace or a volcano. You just need a gap, any gap. Think about your own roof on a summer afternoon. Picture this for a moment. The surface temperature of dark asphalt shingles in direct sunlight can easily reach 85 degrees Celsius. The ambient air just a few inches above that same roof might be sitting at 32 degrees Celsius. That's a 53-degree differential, right there, on your house. Happening right now, every single summer day, generating absolutely nothing, because nobody ever told you it could generate something. Here's what makes this almost poetic in its simplicity. Thermoelectric modules, the small, flat, semiconductor devices that harness the Seebeck effect, begin producing measurable current at a temperature differential as small as 5 degrees. Just 5 degrees. Your roof is giving you 53. You're sitting on an energy gold mine that has been quietly radiating untapped electricity into the sky every summer for as long as you've owned that house. A single bismuth telluride module, the size of a playing card, available online for about $3, can produce approximately 1 watt of continuous power at the kind of differentials your roof produces on a summer day. That's enough to charge a smartphone over the course of 8 hours. That might not sound revolutionary, but stay with me, because the math gets interesting fast. Stack 10 of those modules together across a black-painted aluminum sheet on your roof. Total hardware cost still under $50, and you're producing 10 continuous watts. That's enough for LED lighting throughout your home in the evening. That's enough for radio, phone charging, small electronics. That's power you're generating from heat that was already there, that you were never using, from a differential that nobody can tax, meter, or shut off. And here's the detail that should genuinely make you angry. On a cloudy day, when your solar panels are producing a fraction of their rated output, your roof is still hot. Clouds block sunlight. They don't block heat that's already been absorbed into your shingles. The thermoelectric array doesn't care about clouds. It keeps generating through overcast skies, through light rain, through the kind of gloomy northeastern winter day that makes solar panel owners want to cry. Now let's talk about who knew this and when, because the paper trail is damning. Between 1930 and 1980, thermoelectric technology wasn't dead. It was just hidden, locked away inside 2 of the most secretive institutions on Earth, the Soviet military and the American space program. The Soviets used thermoelectric generators to power remote weather stations across Siberia. Think about that geography for a moment. Imagine this. Frozen tundra, hundreds of miles from the nearest power line. No fuel trucks getting through in winter. No grid. No infrastructure. Just silent metal cylinders. Devices they called Romashka reactors, sitting in the snow, harvesting heat differential and quietly generating electricity year after year. Maintenance-free, fuel-free, silent. Meanwhile, NASA was loading the same technology onto spacecraft. The Voyager probe, launched in 1977, is powered by a thermoelectric generator that converts heat from radioactive decay into electricity. Right now, as you watch this video, Voyager is more than 14 billion miles from Earth, beyond our solar system entirely, and it is still transmitting data, still powered, still running on the Seebeck effect, in deep space, in temperatures close to absolute zero. But for you, the American homeowner, nothing. No consumer products, no DIY guides, no coverage in a single mainstream publication, no government program, just your monthly utility bill, quietly climbing higher every year. The energy lobby in the United States spends over $150 million per year on federal lobbying, every single year. And their stated priorities include grid infrastructure and energy policy. Their unstated priorities include keeping decentralized power generation exactly where they want it. Obscure, complicated, and buried under layers of regulation that the average homeowner would never think to navigate. In 12 states, it is currently illegal to sell electricity back to the grid without a license. In 6 of those states, any rooftop energy device must be inspected by a utility company representative before operation. Think about that dynamic for a second. The company that profits from your dependence on their grid, has the legal authority to inspect and approve the technology you use to reduce that dependence. A $3 thermoelectric module on a roof falls into a regulatory gray zone, and they prefer to keep it gray. The less you know about it, the better their quarterly earnings look. But here's what they cannot touch. They cannot lobby away physics. They cannot pass a law against temperature differential. They cannot patent the heat rising off your sun-baked roof. The Seebeck Effect does not check their balance sheets before it operates. It just works. It has always just worked. This is the part that the team at Secret Vault has spent real time digging into. Not just the history, but the practical reality of what this looks like in your hands right now, with parts you can order online before dinner tonight. Here's exactly what the setup looks like. You need bismuth telluride thermoelectric modules. Search for the model number TAQ12706 online. These are copper-faced semiconductor modules available from electronic suppliers for between $1.50 and $3 each. You also need a small boost converter, a tiny circuit board that steps the low voltage from your modules up to a usable 5 or 12 volts. These cost between $1 and $2 from any online electronics retailer. For rooftop use, attach the hot side of the module flat against a black painted aluminum sheet. A 12-inch square costs under $5 at a hardware store. The black paint maximizes heat absorption from sunlight. The cold side of the module faces upward into open ambient air. On a summer afternoon with 40 degrees of differential, a single module produces up to 1.2 volts. Wire 10 modules together in series across your aluminum sheet, and you're feeding 4 to 12 volts into the boost converter, which trickle charges a 12-volt lithium battery bank throughout the day. That battery bank powers your lights, your phone, your small electronics through the night. For off-grid or camping use, the setup is even more primitive and even more beautiful. Press the hot side of a module against a flat stone sitting beside your campfire, not inside the flames, beside them, where the stone absorbs heat and radiates it evenly. Target a stone temperature between 100 and 150 degrees Celsius. The cold side of the module faces away from the fire into open air. Add a $2 aluminum. Computer heat, sync to the cold side to maximize the temperature differential. A single module in this configuration produces up to 2 volts at 400 milliamps. Wire 2 modules in parallel. Feed the output through a USB boost converter, and you are charging a phone directly from your campfire. No generator, no noise, no fuel, nothing burning except what you were already burning to stay warm. A camper in Oregon documented exactly this setup in 2022. 3 bismuth telluride modules, 1 campfire, 1 boost converter, $11 total in hardware. Over 7 nights solo in the wilderness, he charged a GPS device, 2 smartphones, and a headlamp battery every single night from the heat of his campfire. Not from a generator, not from a solar panel, from heat that was already being produced. That would have otherwise just disappeared into the sky. This is not a prototype. This is not an experimental concept awaiting further testing. This is proven, reproducible physics that has been operational since a German scientist watched a compass needle twitch in 1821. The knowledge never died. It was waiting. Waiting in Soviet technical manuals locked in government archives, waiting in NASA engineering reports filed under aerospace research, waiting in university physics papers that utility lobbyists never bothered to suppress because they assumed nobody outside academia would ever bother to read them. They were almost right. But here's what changes when you actually understand this. And I mean really understand it, not just as an abstract concept, but as a physical reality happening on the roof above your head right now. The conversation around energy independence shifts completely. Because we've been told for over 100 years that energy is something complicated, something that requires infrastructure and expertise and enormous capital investment in centralized distribution networks and monthly payment plans. We've been told that free energy is a fairy tale, that anyone promising it is a fraud, that the grid is the only realistic option for a modern life. What we haven't been told is that one of the most fundamental laws of physics, confirmed in 1821, deployed in space in 1977, available on Amazon for $3, allows any person on any roof, beside any campfire, in any remote location on this planet, to generate electricity from nothing more than a temperature gap. You cannot patent temperature differential. You cannot own the heat rising off sun-baked shingles. The physics belongs to everyone. It always has. Seebeck saw the compass needle move 200 years ago. Whitfield saw the current flowing on a Pennsylvania furnace wall. Soviet engineers saw it powering weather stations through Siberian winters. NASA saw it transmitting data past Neptune. And now, in this moment, you see it. What you see cannot be unseen. The monthly electric bill sitting on your counter right now is counting on the fact that you never connect these dots. It's counting on the assumption that you believe electricity is complicated, expensive, and impossible to generate without them. That assumption has been carefully cultivated, expensively maintained, and legally protected for over a century. It just ran out of room to hide. The heat on your rooftop is real. The temperature differential between your shingles and the open sky is real. The $3 module that converts that differential into electricity is real. It is available today, and it is waiting for you to plug it in. This is the kind of information that the secret vault exists to surface. The buried truths, the suppressed science, the practical knowledge that powerful institutions have spent fortunes keeping out of mainstream conversation. Because here's the uncomfortable reality at the bottom of all of this. The barrier between you and free electricity has never been scientific. The Seebeck Effect works. It has always worked. The barrier is informational. It is the simple, stunning, deliberately maintained fact that most people never heard of it, never learned about it in school, and never saw it discussed on any energy policy platform funded by the same industry that profits from your ignorance. That changes today. And what you do with it, that's up to you.